Picks and roll, Game 5 edition, do or die for the Minnesota Timberwolves. What will happen? We shall find out. Hopefully, we can get the Magic 8-ball out, shake it up a little bit, and pick some winners on DraftKings Sportsbook as well. Good afternoon, Sean Brace, Sean Barnard. Sean Barnard covers all things Sixers and the NBA for us here on The Gambler. A lot to get to. We got one team locked in. Sean, you and I spoke on the phone yesterday on the Daily Ticket. We did not record the picks and rolls since the Celtics were able to lock in one side of the championship game on the East, where they swept the Indiana Pacers. A pretty good series. The funny thing was, Sean, and you and I did discuss this, I told you after game one that I would take the Indiana Pacers from there on out because of the big spreads that we knew what we would get with Boston. And there they were, 7-point favorite or 9-point favorites at home, 7 on the road. They went 1-3 in that series, ATS. So it is two different ways of looking at it. Of course, if you're a Boston sports fan or a sports fan that doesn't care about gambling, yeah, Boston's the real deal. Best team in basketball. We know that. But if you're a gambler and you bet all 4 games on Boston, you lost money. And that's the funny way of going about it when it comes to all things wagering. So we do have a game tonight that features the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. Looking forward to that. But your thoughts on because there is some people trying to make the case that Boston is a really damn good team, but they're not impressive. That's the word that everybody wants to focus. They're not impressed. They don't look like that juggernaut, that team that would put their foot down on a throat and pull away. And when you're going up against the Indiana Pacers, especially without Tyrese Halliburton, that's one thing. But then when you have Kyrie and Luka, for the sake of this conversation, Sean Barnard, we're just going to assume that history will remain and will improve to 155-0, where teams that are 3-0 don't lose in that series in the NBA playoffs. And then that's why Dallas will be in the NBA Finals. However, we do have a game tonight. But your thoughts on the Boston Celtics not being impressive enough for some people out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty sympathetic towards you got to beat who's in front of you, and that's exactly what they did and made it look relatively easy by that. It's not their fault that they're playing beat-up teams, that they played the Heat without Jimmy Butler, that they played the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell injured, and then played the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton injured. That's just kind of the path that they got. To some extent, this NBA playoffs has been about which team has been healthier, and the Celtics have been the beneficiary of that, although they're certainly battling with Kristaps Porzingis as well. Good signs towards him coming back, and I think that will play a factor in them looking more like the dominant team that we saw through most of this regular season. But it is not just about this playoffs. The Celtics did their damage by dominating the entire regular season and creating this path for themselves. So I don't hold it fully against him, but I do think that there is a top-end level that they can play at that they have not shown yet, and they will need to find that in this matchup against the Mavericks.
Wow. Okay. So they got another level to it. And again, I think a lot of people are saying the same thing too, where it's like, if it's not this year for Boston,
right?
It's got to be. You were the best team in basketball season long. Hell of a run so far. A couple hiccups here and there. Of course, they handled business and swept the Pacers. Let's not lose focus on that. But a championship series is a whole different ballgame, especially if you're going up against Luka and Kyrie Irving. One more from the East side of things. With Kristaps Porzingis getting that extra day, like I think I did lean into this with you yesterday. If this series does get extended, and I just saw your tweet tonight, if the Western Conference Finals gets extended, that's got to be beneficial, extremely beneficial, or how beneficial do you see it, that extra day or two rest for the Boston Celtics versus what Dallas will have to do, go back home, play game 6, and if they win that game, then it's probably 2 extra days of rest versus what Boston already has.
Yeah, I mean, so we're locked in for June 6th start for day 1 of the NBA Finals regardless here. I think it's interesting, the Mavericks conversation, that, like, they're a team that hasn't had these substantial injuries, but these are all guys battling through things. That you see Luka has looked banged up for stretches, that I know particularly that ankle was bothering him last series. They were talking a lot about that. Derek Lively, who we'll get into, is battling the neck issue, and he's become an incredibly important part of that team. So they're certainly banged up, and the more rest, the better. There is always that little rest versus rust debate versus when you are playing high level basketball and needing to execute at such a high level, that does carry over to an extent more than so having the downtime. And you just can't replicate that type of intensity and energy at a practice setting, nor do you really want to at this point in the year where you are focused on making sure the bodies are preserved and having your best outlook on the actual floor. So the bottom line is I do think the better team's going to win regardless. I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact, but everyone needs as much rest as they can get at some point. So from the Mavericks perspective here, they absolutely like to wrap things up and get the extra days for sure.
All right. Again, not much change as far as on DraftKings Sportsbook with some of the numbers here. Just as far as MVP Finals Award, Tatum at -115, your far and away favorite. Luka +270. Jaylen Brown did bump up yesterday, now up to 6-1. Anthony Edwards, Kyrie Irving's 22-1. So we'll get into a little bit more of that, of course, after we have the NBA Finals set. We do have the schedule. I did see that out there. We do know that the 8th is the 6th, excuse me, is the official start. I did see Keith Pompey tweet that out there. So one of those days that were jumping off the page at me was the following Wednesday, the middle week of the next week, maybe for us to get together for a watch party, NBA final style, as we did that last year with the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets. And believe it or not, a lot of people tuned in. So we might be back in the Duncan Lounge one more time for the NBA Finals. All right. Who will be in the NBA Finals from the west side of things? Let's talk about tonight's game. Game 5. Back in Minnesota, we have some slight movement as far as that number is concerned. It was as high as 5, now down a half a tick to 4.5. 209.5 is your number there. -192 for the money line on the T-Wolves, +160 on the money line for the Dallas Mavericks. The title of this program right here is Dallas is a lively dog. Of course, we're talking about the injury to the rookie, Derek Lively. Pretty significant at the end of the day. We still don't know. I did read this morning that it wasn't as bad, or he wasn't immediately ruled out. There's a possibility he'll be able to go. Are you hearing anything different? Are you seeing anything different?
Yeah, he's been officially upgraded to questionable. It does seem like there's going to be a situation where he goes through the pregame warmups and sees how he feels and the decisions made from there. I did read that he looked pretty good this morning at shoot around, the way he was moving around, looking like himself out there, which is a positive sign. I'm pretty impressed that the outlook's as positive as it is. When I first saw the injury occur, I thought there was pretty much a likely chance he was shut down for the series. And again, I thought it was a concussion, not a neck issue. So I guess maybe dodged a little bit of a bullet there, that this is a neck sprain that he's particularly battling through, not anything with his brain or his head there. So I do think it's trending towards Derek Lively plays. I will say I think Dan Gafford was pretty good in stepping up in those extra minutes and has been throughout the entirety of the series. But there is a level of athleticism, a level of playmaking ability that Lively possesses that brings out another element to this Mavericks offense. So they certainly need him on the floor. He will improve the ceiling of that team to a pretty significant margin and be a difference maker in this game if he is on the floor, assuming that is the 100% version of himself. So I would say that it's trending toward him being on the floor, but it's going to be a last-minute decision for sure.
8.5 points, 7.1 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.1 blocks per game, and is shooting 65% from the field. 2024 playoffs for the rookie. So he's made his mark. That's for damn sure. And you saw it in that previous game in game 4. Not going to say that, like they're going to win that game if he's in there, but I do believe it would give him a better shot, of course, right? A little burst of energy off, coming on under the floor. Again, I think Minnesota was really locked in and was winning that game no matter what. But who knows? Anyways, it'd be great to get him back out there. You want to see these teams, fully healthy and battling. And again, tonight's game, do or die. Minnesota, if they find a way to win this game, they extend the series to 6. For the people that did not pay attention earlier, 154-0 for teams that are 3-0 in a series, best of 7 series in the NBA playoffs. It's never happened before. But if you can extend it and make Dallas sweat a little bit, heading back, that's going to be interesting. And I think it plays into, of course, our side of things when we're just sports fans. We want to be entertained. And last night, I was watching The Last Dance. I watched NBA or the Stanley Cup playoffs, don't get me wrong, but I was locked into The Last Dance. I need my NBA basketball. So I don't want to see this series end by no means. But tonight, 4.5 point spread. Sean Barnard, where are you leaning?
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves keep things going, that they do extend the series here. That I think this is an example of the series being far or closer than the series score would indicate. That the 3-1, every single game has gone down to the wire. This has been close, and I don't think the Timberwolves have quite played their best basketball. And obviously, you do have to credit the Mavericks for that, specifically Luka Doncic, the way that he has picked apart this Timberwolves defense that has caused such issues for teams like the Denver Nuggets last series, that Luka has just found a way around things. There were 18 different defensive variations they threw at Luka in the pick and roll coverage in game 3, and he found a way to basically beat all of them. There were some adjustments in game 4, and I do think that was a large reason why that was the victory for Minnesota. I expect a little bit more of that tonight. I also expect a little bit better performance from the supporting cast, the Jaden McDaniels, the Naz Reid, when they will have the home crowd behind them for those role player type guys to step up. I do think that they get that. I think Karl Anthony Towns continues in the right trajectory, that he had a really brutal stretch, talking about the first 3 games of the series where he shot 0 for 8 from 3, 1 for 5 from 3, and 2 for 9 from 3. He ultimately rebounded for a 4 for 5 performance last game. I think that he trends more towards the Karl Anthony Towns that we generally see, who is still one of the best big man shooters of all time. So I think the Timberwolves are going to have a more complete performance than we saw through the beginning of this series, that they've officially woken up. They feel their backs against the walls, and I think they're going to bite back and respond tonight.
All right. Yeah. And like I said, I kind of want to see it, but at the same time, I've been impressed with Luka and Kyrie when he's been on. He's definitely been a difference maker. Had a little bit of an off game in that game 4. So I do expect a better performance, but that crowd's going to be electric. And it comes down to Ant, right? Is he the difference maker, or is it more Karl Anthony Towns for you?
And I feel more confident in what you're getting from him on a night-to-night basis, that you pretty much know. There's certainly more ups and downs with Karl Anthony Towns, but I mean, Ant is the engine of that offense. That's who's everything goes through, and I think he's done a really nice job as a playmaker and doing kind of the other things that we essentially know him as a scorer on the basketball floor. I think he's done a really nice job, not just defensively, but the way he's playmaking for others, the way he's improved on the rebounds, averaging over 8 rebounds and over 8 assists in the series, which is not really the norm for Anthony Edwards. So I think overall he's been really good, even though he hasn't shot the ball incredible in the series. But to answer the question, I would say Anthony Edwards he takes this team as far as they will go. And I think that they kind of have realized that over the course of the series, or over the course of this season, which is a large reason why they're going farther than a lot of us expected to be the case.
Interesting numbers on DraftKings for you to get involved with. They have some head-to-head matchups: Ant versus Kyrie, Ant versus Luka. Luka's favored by 2.5 points versus Anthony Edwards. Kyrie catching 5.5 there. So that is intriguing. Again, Kyrie Irving, does he understand the moment? Yes. Does that mean he's going to hit the shots? No. So I would lean towards that number 5.5 more than Luka, because to me, I just think you lock Luka in for 33.
Yeah. And Luka, even last game where he shot the ball 33% from the field, still found a way to get his way over 30 points. I believe he ended with 33 in that one. His floor as a basketball player is so sky high. It's really impressive stuff. And some of that comes with the way that he plays, how ball dominant that he is. But he really is a basketball wizard, one of these just far advanced playmakers that I think him and Jokic are on another level. And that sets up the shot, that his ability to prevent teams from blitzing and bringing doubles gives him the freedom to basically score at will. He adds in the mid range, which I see the James Harden comparisons all the time, largely due to the stylistic nature and the way that they play. But Luka has that in between game in a way that James Harden never really did, the way that he likes getting guys on his back. So yeah, it's really impressive. Luka's taking his game to another level, and this likely isn't even the 100% version of himself. So I'm with you. I think the bar is sky high. I think he clears it, and ultimately that he does clear his player prop tonight as well.
All right. So where are we going in the game as far as player props are concerned on DraftKings?
Yeah, there's a lot to like here, and I did cook up the same game parlay to get back in action here after that. So to start with this one, I did swing at right here. We're starting with Karl Anthony Towns, who I mentioned as the X factor here, rocking with the points, rebounds, and assists over 30.5. That I do think, to Cat's credit, he has found ways to impact the game just beyond scoring. I don't love the scoring number. I believe it's at 20.5. That I feel more confident in him finding other ways to get involved. There are a couple nice moments last game where he had a nice ditch off to Rudy Gobert down low, which created points there. So keeping that door open to still find success with it. I like the points, rebounds, and assists at 30.5. Then I'm going to Luka over 30.5 points. As I mentioned, the floor is just so high, and I do think that he finds a way to comfortably clear that. He's just so impressive, and like just finds a way to get it done no matter what is thrown his way. He's going to have the looks. He's going to have the ball in his hands. And I think he has a relatively easy time clearing that 30.5. And lastly, the Timberwolves money line there. So those 3 picks, which again is Karl-Anthony Towns over 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists, Luka Doncic over 30.5 points, and Timberwolves money line, that comes in at plus 420 on the same game parlay.
Wow. All right. A lot of good numbers there to choose from, and hopefully a green check mark to follow. Once again, give the people the same game parlay that you're firing again.
Yep. Karl-Anthony Towns over 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Luka Doncic over 30.5 points, and then Timberwolves money line.
T-Wolves money line. I was just looking at a stat here. Luka's average at 9.5 rebounds in this series.
Mm-hmm.
Good grief. That's insane. You know, you think that Rudy Gobert would be leading the charge as far as rebounds in this series, and that's not the case. So the leading rebounder in this series per average is Luka at 9.5.
I saw stats somewhere. Luka is second all time right now for combined points, rebounds, and assists in the playoffs. So that's an absurd number there, and likely could only grow. I'm trying to remember who was first. I'm gonna have to give that a Google.
Yeah, Luka is leading the series 31.5 points per game. He's leading the series 9.5 rebounds per game. He's leading the series with assists. He's averaging 9 per game.
It's just absurd stuff.
Hey, look, maybe there is something to the folks on ESPN saying he's the best player in the game right now. It's a prisoner of the moment take, all right? Like, he deserves his flowers. I'm with you. But do we have to say somebody is the greatest when they're not able to play? I just, like, it's, you guys have been going, they've been going crazy over the Joker forever, for 3 seasons now, if not more. And now he's out. The first time that he's not playing, and it's like, nah, this guy's better than him. Well, does it mean simply because somebody's actually playing and the other person isn't? Is that our only qualification here with this discussion? It's just stupid, right? Stay consistent. These ESPN folks they don't know what that word means.
Yeah, it does constantly change, and basketball specifically is always this interesting blend of individual and team success that, like, you need your team to still be remaining in the playoffs. And you have to be kind of carrying the load there. So we saw Jokic receive his crown by taking this team to a championship. If Luka does the same thing, there will be some interesting conversations there. For what it's worth, I do think Luka is a better defender than his reputation indicates. That I think he's competed far better. I would say, like, I remember 2 years ago, specifically in that Sun series where they were singling out, putting him on an island and really having their way. That has not been the Luka Doncic that has been there on the defensive end this year. That he has competed, he has brought it, and been at least above average in that situation. So I do give him credit for that. And as far as the stat I was pulling up for points per game all time in the playoffs, Michael Jordan number 1 with 33.4, and Luka Doncic second at 31.0, and AI at third at 29.7 there. So Luka's second all time in points per game in the postseason, which is pretty incredible stuff.
I believe Julian Edlow yesterday joined me from DraftKings. He said that the T-Wolves first half was his play at -2.5 here. Any thoughts on a first half number from either team? It's 2.5 point spread here.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves are a team that need to punch first when they're going to have success. So I do like the outlook there. We know that they're going to have the home crown behind them, and we know that the back is against the wall. That if they do not win this game, then they go home for the summer there. So I do like that play there. I think the Timberwolves are very much like a tone-setting team, specifically on the defensive end. They got to impose themselves. They got to jump out to the league. So I like where his head's at with that.
And 107.5 is a really high number. Last game out 49 apiece at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. So under the 100, under a buck there. I would still simply say that I just feel like with what's at stake, defense will be at a premium again this evening. I get it. Things might open up. You know, these are 2 teams that want to get up, that have some really good scoring. Players that can just go up there and throw up some serious numbers. Understood. But for me, I'll still take the under on 107.5. That might be a play for me.
Yeah, I like that. I like the under on the game as well, that I think this is going to be a slow-paced defensive matchup, and that's what Minnesota needs to stick in this, that Dallas is pretty much capable winning in any way, that they can run and gun. In general, they play a little bit more of a slower pace where it is Luka Doncic in the half-court setting, but they also mix it up where they have those full-court lobs that are basically their way of running the fast break. They do have guys that get out in transition, and Luka is so special as a passer that he can pretty much pick them apart from all over the floor, that even though he's not that running gun type player, that he has those hit ahead full court quarterback passes that get the job done just fine. So they can win in a variety of ways. For Minnesota, I think they're going to be pretty intent on controlling the tempo, keeping things slow, and keeping this a half court affair. So I like where your head's at and do lean under both in the first half and in the game overall.
Karl Anthony Towns shooting 25.9% from downtown for the series.
Yeah, and that's gone up significantly after going 4 for 5 last game. The previous game, 0 for 8 there, and has not been good all series. So that's something that they cannot live with. And that basically opens up everything in this offense, is that Karl Anthony Towns is supposed to be this floor spacer. That's the huge reason why they brought in Rudy Gobert, allowed Cat to be like a true kind of stretch forward type player with obviously a little bit more to his game than just that. So they need him to improve on that. They need him to knock down some threes, and that will very much be a deciding factor in the direction this game goes.
All right, Sean. Once again, you got the T-Wolves on the money line, the number 4.5. You staying away?
I do think this is still going to be a close game. That the 4.5 is just a little bit too much for me. I think that I think pretty much any way I slice this, that we're going to come down to 2 minutes to go, and this game still having a chance to go either direction, even with Minnesota maybe controlling the pace and controlling the tempo. I don't see Dallas rolling over. So the 4.5 is too many for me. I do think it's going to be one that comes down to the wire.
Would not shock me if that is the case.
Yeah.
Won't shock me at all. All right. Looking forward to it. Once again, same game parlay rolled out by Sean Barnard at Sean_Barnard1. Let's get back on the train. Had a couple winners to open up shop. A close one. We were a 3-point away from Luka in game 2 for going 3 straight. But I like where your head's at tonight. And T-Wolves money line. Got to show me something. And it starts with Anthony Edwards. It starts with them. And, you know, it's not to sit here and say that I don't know if he's going to have that type of game, or you know, he might be tired. You know, that might have been a lot of struggle for him to go on the road and win that game in game 4 and now go back home. He said it himself. He was tired. So hopefully he's got a little more juice in his step for tonight's game. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to watching it. We missed the NBA last night. And if Dallas does win, we know who's playing in the NBA Finals. If not, we get ourselves a game 6 on Friday. No, today's Thursday. So Saturday night, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, and that one will be back in Dallas. So that will be where, if Minnesota does take care of business and extend things tonight, there's going to be some pressure on the Mavericks to take care of it, because you do not want to be heading back to a game 7 in Minnesota there. There would be a ton of pressure in that game. So it all starts with tonight. Got to take care of business if you are the Timberwolves. I do hope that is the case, both for tonight from the handicapping standpoint and from just the basketball fan. That the more basketball, the better for me.
All right. Get you out of here on this. Yesterday, there's a podcast up at foxphlgambler.com where Sean waxed poetic about the 76ers and gave us the latest on what's real and what's not. I do have an article in front of me. We'll get you out of here on this, ranking the trade possibilities for 10 NBA stars. I'm going to list the names of these players. You tell me if you have any interest for the 76ers. You ready?
Okay.
Number 10, Mikal Bridges.
Absolutely.
Number 9, Tyler Hero. No, you would say no to a Tyler Hero trade.
I would, I would say no to a Tyler Hero trade.
Number 8, Trae Young.
No.
You would say no to a Trae Young trade for the Sixers.
I don't think he can play with Maxey, so no.
Fair. Donovan Mitchell, 7.
Yes.
Mitchell Robinson, 6.
Probably not.
Kyle Kuzma, 5.
Possibly.
Wow, you're possibly on Kuz. Oh,
I like Kuzma. He's a better player than his reputation.
That's the issue. I like Kuz too, but his reputation isn't sharp. All right, let's keep moving because we got to rub against it. Number 4, Jared Allen.
No.
Number 3, Zach LaVine for the 100th time.
Maybe.
Number 2, Brandon Ingram.
Maybe.
Number 1, Darius Garland.
No.
So you gave me one. Yes. What'd you say? Donovan Mitchell, yes?
Yeah, and an absolutely on Bridges.
Oh, yeah, and Bridges at the top. Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd almost rather them do that with Mikal Bridges to get what they got wrong versus what we're reading about Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way, but it takes 2 to tango, and who knows what Brooklyn's thinking. I think they're still trying to build around him, even though I don't think they have enough there. I think it would be in their best interest to blow it up and take a package for Bridges, but I don't think that's their mindset right now.
Sean_Barnard1, the number 1. Sean, always a pleasure. Enjoy the games. Good luck on those plays. We'll be back at it tomorrow, sir.
Absolutely. Talk to you then.
My man.